Good evening and welcome back to the Be Yourself Unapologetically podcast. I'm Becca, your host, and tonight we're getting deeper about something again. So welcome back to the show, because today's episode is a heavy one, but it's also one of the most important conversations we can have as parents, carers, professionals, and as people who care about children and young people. We're talking about CAMHS, Child and Adolescent Mental Health Services, and how far too often they let children down unless they tick the right boxes. We're going to look at what happens to children with special educational needs and disabilities, children with school-based anxiety and emotionally based school avoidance, children who internalise everything and look fine from the outside until the day they completely break. We'll talk about real cases where CAMHS failings have been documented in inquests and official reports. We'll look at what the data actually says about rejected referrals and long waits, and we will ask, what would a triage system look like if it genuinely understood mass distress and internalised struggles? Before we go any further, content warning. This episode will mention self-harm, suicide and inquests involving children and teenagers. If you're listening and you feel yourself getting overwhelmed, please pause this episode and take care of yourself. If you're in the UK and you need urgent support, as usual, you can contact the Samaritans on 116123, NHS 111, your GP or 999 in an emergency. You are not alone and you deserve support too. Alright, take a breath with me, in and out. Now let's get into it. So what CAMHS is meant to be and what families actually experience. When you read the official descriptions, CAMHS sounds like exactly what we'd want for our children. NHS and local health boards describe CAMHS as specialist mental health services for children and young people with persistent, complex or severe mental health difficulties, offering assessment, evidence-based therapy and multidisciplinary support. Psychiatrists, psychologists, nurses, therapists, the lot. On paper, the idea is that children are referred when they're struggling, their needs are assessed, and they get the right level of support at the right time. But that's the theory. The reality that parents and children describe is very different. Research and audits across the UK have repeatedly found that a huge number of children are turned away from specialist CAMHS altogether. An audit of rejected referrals found that around 1 in 5 referrals were rejected during the period studied, often on the basis of a quick paper triage and without a face-to-face assessment. UK-wide estimates have suggested that tens of thousands of children each year are denied access to specialist children's mental health services. One report put that figure at about 30,000 children and young people turned away annually. And more recent coverage has highlighted 250,000 children being denied mental health care, with one NHS trust alone turning away almost 12,000 young people in a single year. At the same time, the number of children waiting for help has climbed to nearly 500,000, with the Care Quality Commission warning that increasing demand and problems accessing early help mean too many children face long waits and deteriorating mental health while they do. So we already have two big problems: rejected out the door. A referral goes in and CAMHS says, doesn't meet our criteria. 2, left to wait, accepted to the list, but months pass, sometimes years, with no meaningful treatment. And if that's the picture for children whose struggles are visible and obvious, imagine what it's like for children who mask, internalise and keep up a brave face until the day they crack. Ticking boxes. How triage misses internalised distress. Let's talk about the triage system, the bit most families never see properly. Across the UK, audits and research into rejected CAMHS referrals show the same pattern of reasons for saying no. Symptoms not severe enough. Does not meet criteria. No mental health disorder identified. Lack of stability. For example, if a child is in care or placements are changing, another service is already involved. Many of these decisions are made on paper very quickly without meeting the child. GPs have told charities, I'm trying to get all this out. There's a lot going on and I just want to run and I'm trying not to, so bear with me. GPs have told charities like Young Minds that it's common for children to be referred and rejected multiple times, each time being told they fall just below the CAMHS threshold. Even when everyone agrees, they are clearly struggling. And this is where the box ticking comes in. If your child has made a suicide attempt, has repeated visible self-harm, is refusing food to the point of clinical risk, or is acting out aggressively, these are more likely to tick enough boxes to be seen as severe or high risk. I mean, that alone is disturbing, that it has to get to that point. So what about the child who is masking all day in school, is petrified of going in, is waking you at 3 a.m. with stomach aches and tears, is autistic or ADHD and completely overwhelmed by the environment, and then quietly breaks down at home? That child often does not tick the right boxes in the way the triage system currently works. Parents' accounts and parliamentary evidence show that many children who are not fine in school are treated as attendance problems, not mental health emergencies. Organisations like Not Fine in School and Square Peg have submitted evidence to Parliament describing families being disbelieved, blamed or accused of fabricating illness, while children's underlying anxiety, trauma and neurodivergence are not taken seriously. Young Minds describe how school anxiety and refusal is often linked to bullying, trauma, unmet SEND needs and overwhelming environments, and they explicitly advise parents that there may be undiagnosed autism or ADHD, especially in girls who internalise. Legal charity PSEA points out that many children are unable to attend school because of anxiety linked to their SEN, and that families regularly seek help where school attendance has collapsed due to emotionally based school avoidance. Despite this, investigations have found that suicidal children are still being turned away, with school told simply to keep them safe, and that some mental health services refuse to see children with autism or other neurodevelopmental differences because they don't meet criteria for therapy. So the message to families can feel like this: you're not bad enough yet, come back when things have completely fallen apart. And for children who internalise, that often means coming back too late. Real cases when the system fails vulnerable young people. Let's talk about real young people whose stories have been examined in inquests and official reports. I'm going to mention some details here, not to sensationalise, but because these cases show in black and white what happens when camouflage distress, autism, ADHD and school-related anxiety collide with a rigid box-ticking system. Case 1. Jen Bridges Chalkley. Jennifer, known as Jen Chalkley, was a 17-year-old girl from Surrey. She was autistic and had ADHD. She'd experienced bullying and anxiety for years. Just like my daughter, she was referred to CAMHS and spent long periods waiting for therapy that never came in. In 2021, Jen took her own life. At her inquest, the senior coroner found multiple failures on the part of Surrey and Borders CAMHS and Surrey County Council. The inquest concluded that these failures, involving delays and problems in managing her education, health and care plan and providing mental health support, contributed to her death. Her mum, Sharon, has since spoken publicly about how hard she fought to get help for Jen, describing how her daughter was left without timely, consistent care despite repeated referrals and clear evidence of distress. Jen's story is painfully familiar to families of autistic and ADHD girls with school anxiety and internalised struggles. On the outside, they often appear bright, high-functioning or coping. On the inside, they are drowning. Case 2. Oscar Nash. Another case in Surrey involved Oscar Nash, a 14-year-old autistic boy who died in 2020. A coroner's prevention of future deaths report found that Oscar's death was more than minimally contributed to by failures of Surrey and Borders CAMHS to undertake a clinical assessment of his mental and emotional health at any stage, despite repeated requests. In other words, requests for help were made. CAMHS never properly assessed him. He did not get that diagnosis, treatment and the support he needed. Case 3. Children turned away while suicidal. This is what we're going through right now. A special investigation by Schools Week revealed that suicidal children were being turned away by overstretched CAMHS, with schools told to simply keep them safe. It found thousands of children stuck on waiting lists and reported that many services refused to see autistic children on the grounds that they didn't meet therapy criteria. In Parliament, MPs have referenced this investigation, highlighting how over a third of children were turned away from mental health services despite having professional referrals. Case 4. Children denied care due to instability. Research in Scotland on rejected CAMHS referrals found that children in care were sometimes denied access because their placement was seen as unstable. In other words, the very fact that their life was chaotic, often due to trauma, became a reason not to treat them. This is the opposite of trauma-informed practice. School-based anxiety, send and masking. Yes, I'm talking about this a lot at the moment, and I have good reason to. So let's zoom in on school-based anxiety, emotionally based school avoidance, the kids who start out just feeling sick every morning and end up unable to cross the school gate. PSEA describes how they regularly support families whose children are unable to access education because of anxiety or similar difficulties. very often linked to the child's special educational needs. Local SEND information services and parent guides acknowledge that school refusal is frequently driven by severe anxiety, mental health issues, trauma, how self-esteem, bullying and autism contribute. And parent-led groups like Not Fine in School now have tens of thousands of members, a whole generation of families trying to navigate the same nightmare. A child who can't manage school and a system that insists they should be able to. Here's how the story often goes. A child starts struggling with school. Headaches, stomach aches, meltdowns, before or after school withdrawing at home, trouble sleeping. They may be autistic or ADHD, diagnosed or not, and the school environment is sensory overload, noise, crowds, unpredictability, social rules they don't get. Their anxiety ramps up, their attendance drops. Instead of seeing this as an indicator of mental health crisis, the system frames it as an attendance problem. Parents are told, you just need to get them in. They'll be fine once they're here. They're not like this in school. We don't see any issues in class. The last one is crucial because a lot of neurodivergent young people are masters of masking. They hold it together all day to avoid being told off, to avoid standing out, to avoid more bullying. Teachers see a quiet, compliant child. Then they go home, collapse, screaming, sobbing, self-harming, shutting down, or going flat and numb. By the time parents push for a CAMHS referral, they're often met with, they're still attending sometimes, so it's not serious enough. They're not self-harming in a way that meets criteria. We think this is more of a parenting or school issue. And if the child is already receiving any kind of support, school counselling, an educational psychologist, a charity service, that can sometimes be used as a reason to reject the CAMHS referral rather than working together. So children who internalise en masse, especially autistic girls and quieter neurodivergent boys, end up in a dangerous gap. It's took me months to get support for my daughter, and because we finally have support by Women's Aid, CAMHS, again, do not want to know. So, the dangerous gap. They're distressed enough to stop going to school, but not traumatic enough or not visible enough. To trigger the triage boxes, they lead to urgent CAMHS care. What triage looks like for an internaliser. Let's walk through a typical triage story. Imagining a fictional young person whose experience reflects patterns described in research and family testimonies. So, for the theoretical, let's call her Mia. Mia is 13, she's bright, sensitive, probably autistic, though not yet diagnosed. She started secondary school and it's been a disaster. She's overwhelmed by the noise and the constant movement. She's terrified of getting things wrong. Friendship dynamics are brutal and confusing. At home, she is melting down every night, sobbing, begging not to go, scratching at her arms, saying she doesn't want to be alive if school is like this forever. At school, she is quiet, polite, always saying, "I'm fine," when a teacher asks. Her attendance starts to drop, a few days off here and there, then weeks. Her mum goes to the GP in tears. The GP agrees Mia is in distress and refers her to CAMHS, describing school refusal, persistent anxiety, possible autism, thoughts about not wanting to be alive. The referral lands on CAMHS triage desk. Someone who has never met Mia reads a short description. They have hundreds of other referrals stacked up. There is a shortage of staff and a huge waiting list. They look at the key boxes. Recent suicidal attempt? No. Active self-harm requiring medical treatment? No. Immediate risk to self or others in school? No. She's actually not attending much. Psychosis? No. Eating disorder with medical instability? No. They might see attending school sometimes, support being offered through school, and concerns about autism. Refer to ND pathway. And so the decision comes back. Does not meet criteria for specialist CAMHS. We recommend support from school, GP, other organisations. Sticking with the one that's working with you are e.g. Women's Aid. If not diagnosed, possible referral for autism assessment. On paper, that looks reasonable. In real life, what it means is Mia gets no specialist mental health intervention. Her parents are left trying to encourage her into school when her nervous system is already in full-blown panic. School, under attendance pressure, may start threatening sanctions. Her anxiety deepens, her sense of safety disappears, and by the time anyone realises how bad it is, she may be self-harming in secret or talking about suicide in a way that is no longer vague. Triage looked at the boxes said no, but Mia's nervous system was screaming yes. So, why the current system fails internalisers and send children? Let's pull out the core. Problems with the current triage model as it affects school anxious and send children who internalise. Reliance on visible crisis. The system is geared towards spotting attempts, injuries and extreme behaviours. But internal distress, shutting down, going quiet, freezing, avoiding, often doesn't register as urgent, even though it can be just as life-threatening over time. Paper triage without lived context. We know from audit data that many referrals are rejected purely from the paperwork without a face-to-face assessment. This means no chance to see how masked the child is. No opportunity to hear from parents in detail. No opportunity to observe the gap between in school and at home. Thresholds that punish early help seeking. Young Minds report that it is common for young people to be referred and rejected several times, each time being told they fall below the threshold for CAMHS. So if a family seeks help before things have escalated to self-harm or suicide attempts, they are more likely to be told, "You're not bad enough yet." The system, in effect, rewards crisis and punishes prevention. Neurodivergence misunderstood. Investigations and media coverage have highlighted cases where autistic young people were refused therapy because their difficulties were attributed solely to autism, or left on waiting lists despite clear worsening distress. Autistic traits such as flat affect, difficulty expressing feelings or saying "I'm fine" automatically can be read as resilience instead of masking. School seen as separate, not integral. School attendance data and school-based anxiety are often treated as education issues or behaviour issues, rather than as early warning systems of mental health crisis. Yet parent-led organisations and charities are clear. School anxiety, EBSA, and not finding school are often expressions of deep distress, not simple truancy. So what would a better triage system look like? So what would need to change for CAMHS triage to truly support children who internalise, especially those with SEND and school-based anxiety? Let's imagine a system designed for real children, not just neat boxes. Face-to-face or live assessment before rejection. No child should be rejected CAMHS on paperwork alone when there are clear concerns about school attendance linked to anxiety. They're suspected or diagnosed with ADHD, or a parent or professional has raised suicidal thoughts. Audit work has already criticised quick paper rejections with limited signposting. A better system would guarantee at least one live contract, in person, video or phone, before deciding to close the door. School-based anxiety as a red flag, not a side note. Emotionally based school avoidance shouldn't be treated as non-urgent attendance stuff. It should be flagged automatically as a mental health risk marker, especially when linked to SEND. Guidance and parent testimonials show how EBSA is often intertwined with trauma, bullying, neurodivergence, and serious anxiety. Triage should ask, has school attendance dropped significantly? Is the link to anxiety, panic, or meltdown? Is there suspected or diagnosed SEND? If the answers are yes, the question should not be, is this severe enough for us? But what support can we offer quickly to stop this deteriorating? Autism and ADHD informed triage. Given the high rates of mental health difficulties among autistic and ADHD young people, triage must be explicitly neurodiversity informed. That means recognising masking, shutdowns and flat presentation as possible signs of extreme distress. Understanding that many autistic young people will say, I'm fine, even when they are in crisis. Factoring sensory overload, executive function difficulties and social exhaustions into risk assessments. Real cases like Jen Chalkley and Oscar Nash show what happens when neurodivergent distress is not recognised until it's too late. Early support bulbs and stepped care. Early support hubs and strapped care. Doctors and charities have called for early support hubs where children under 18s can access help quickly without waiting for CAMHS thresholds, because many children are being turned away and left to deteriorate. A better system would work like this. If a child doesn't meet the criteria for intensive CAMHS, they are automatically offered lower intensity support, for example, counselling, group work, digital CBT, or sessions for parents rather than just being rejected. There is a clear step-up pathway if things get worse, instead of starting from scratch with another rejected referral. Joined up data between education, health and care. The Children's Commissioner and others have called for a more integrated children's plan that combines educational and health and care data to identify vulnerable children earlier, including those frequently missing school, living in poverty or with SEND. If a child's attendance is failing, an EHCP is delayed, and parents are repeatedly asking for mental health help, that combination should trigger proactive support, not criminalisation of the family. Measuring success by prevention, not just crisis. Right now, services are so stretched that they often measure success by how many crises they can manage. A better system would ask, how many suicides have we prevented? How many young people never reach self-harm because we helped early? How many children with EBSA have safely returned to education or had appropriate alternate provision without their mental health collapsing? That shift in mindset would change everything. What this means for families living it right now. If you're listening to this as a parent or carer, you might be thinking, that's all well and good, but we are in the middle of this now. I completely feel for you because I am going through the same thing. So just let's talk about what we can do today. Even within a broken system, none of this is a magic fix. You shouldn't have to do it, but these are the things that have helped other families. Document everything. Keep a simple log of school attendance, meltdowns or shutdowns, self-harm statements or behaviours, sleep patterns, any incidents of bullying or sensory overwhelm. When you go to the GP or CAMHS, you're not just saying they're anxious, you're showing patterns over time. Use a language the system understands. As unfair as it is, the system tends to respond more to certain words and phrases such as, they have talked about wanting to die. They have talked about harming themselves. Their attendance has dropped to so percentage. They are unable to attend school due to anxiety, not refusing. This is not about exaggerating. It's about not minimising what's really happening. Draw on specialist advice and rights-based support. Organisations like Young Minds with guides on school anxiety, CAMHS and where to go when you're turned away. IPSEA for legal information around SEND, EHCPs and school attendance. Not Finding School and similar parent networks for lived experiences, letter templates and solidarity. These organisations can help you put into words what is happening and remind local authorities and health services of their responsibilities. Hence why I'm doing this again, because we don't get told none of this. So I am reaching out in the middle of my crisis to help you with yours. If you are turned away, ask for it in writing. If a CAMHS reject your child, ask for the decision in writing, the clinical rationale, and what alternative support they are signposting to. This can be important if you later need to complain, escalate, or request a review. Take care of yourself. The research is clear. When children are left in crisis, the whole family is traumatised, with parents often blamed and left without support. You deserve help too, whether it's a support group, your own GP, counselling, online communities. Your well-being is not a luxury. You are the person holding everything together. A message to professionals and policymakers. If you're a professional listening, a teacher, a GP, a CAMHS clinician, a commissioner, a politician, I want to end by speaking directly to you. No one goes into child mental health work wanting to harm children. Most CAMHS clinicians are as heartbroken and frustrated as parents are. Many feel trapped in an underfunded, overstretched system. But systematic failure still harms individual children. The cases we've talked about today, Jen Chalkley, Oscar Nash, and the countless unnamed children turned away while suicidal or stuck on waiting lists, are not tragedies of individual weakness, they are tragedies of policy and design. If you design a triage system that prioritises visible crisis over internalised pain, treats EBSA as attendance misbehaviour, sees autism and ADHD as reason to exclude rather than reason to accept, and allows paper-based rejections without seeing the child, then you will continue to miss the quietest, most overwhelmed young people until some of them are too distressed to save. Change is possible. Fund early support hubs and lower threshold services so CAMHS doesn't have to be the only door. Mandate neurodiversity-informed triage training. Build automatic risk flags into your systems for EBSA and rapidly failing attendance. Require live contact before rejecting referrals. And measure success not just in how many crises you stabilise, but in how many children you keep out of crisis altogether. If you've listened this far, thank you. Thank you for bearing with me. And I really hope that some of this has helped. If you're a parent or carer in the thick of this, I see you. Every phone call you make, every email you write, every fight for your child's right to be safe. It all matters, even when the system makes you feel like you're shouting into the wind. If you're a young person listening who recognises yourself in this episode, the one who looks fine on the outside and falls apart inside, I want you to hear this. Your pain is real. You shouldn't have to tick a box to deserve help. You are not ill enough. You are not a problem to be managed. You are human. You are a human being who deserves care. If anything in this episode has brought stuff up for you, please reach out to a trusted adult, to your GP, to a helpline. And if you're in immediate danger, call 999. And if you need someone to talk to, Samaritans are there 24/7 on 116123 in the UK. I have to believe change is coming. Parents, young people, professionals and campaigners who are pushing hard, reports, inquests and investigations who are making it harder to ignore the gaps, and more people than ever are saying this isn't good enough. Until the system changes, we will keep talking about it, we will keep telling the truth, and we will keep fighting for a world where our children don't have to break before anyone believes they're hurting. Thank you for listening. Take care of yourself today, and I'll speak to you in the next episode.